Welcome to the Holistic Pathway Podcast, unscripted conversations on mind, body, spirit, and entrepreneurship, a new video series podcast where we dive deep into the holistic integration of life and business. I am Tammy Coyne, your holistic alchemist, helping you change pain into possibilities and possibilities into purpose. Today's chat is with Kimberly Bakker. And Kimberly is a wife, daughter, and mother to a 17, 16, and 14-year-old. Kimberly has over 18 years of experience in property management, marketing, and human resources. She has a passion helping others learn self-acceptance and helps others on the letting go of caring about judgments of others regarding their own personal lives. Kimberly is a powerful force within her community, volunteering for hospice, children, the elderly, and victims of domestic violence. Kimberly lives a lifestyle she calls an intuitive lifestyle. She is an intuitive eater, intuitive home decorator, and intuitive dresser. Other than abiding the laws of our land, Kimberly has ditched man-made up rules to live by. Kimberly has learned she's constantly learning, changing, and becoming. She gives herself the grace and compassion to be whoever she wants to be with the dawn of each day. One of Kimberly's worst fears is being in the same metaphorical space she was in this time last year. So I'm so excited to have Kimberly on the show today, and I hope you enjoy today's episode, and we'll see you soon. All right, Kimberly, thank you so much for being on the show. I'm so happy to have you. We have really just kind of become Facebook friends, right? And
Yeah.
it's so fun when I connect with people because we just are coming together from all over the world. And I like to say that I believe all the people doing this heart-centered work are lighthouses, and how do we bring all the lighthouses together and see what we can do to make the world a better place? So how are you doing today?
Absolutely. I'm doing wonderful. I'm doing wonderful. I really appreciate being here, and I'm so excited to finally speak with you because I know we've pen palled for you've received several manuscripts from me by now. And I just love each and every encounter with you. I'm always learning something from you, so that's really nice.
Oh, well, thank you so
Yeah.
much. I loved learning a little bit more about you and your bio. I have had experiences in my life with hospice, and that's such an amazing thing. And I've had experiences with domestic violence and some of the other things you mentioned. And so tell me more about that. Like, are you actively involved with hospice, or what are you doing with hospice?
Sure, yeah. I started volunteering with hospice right after COVID.
Mm.
I'm not doing it much right now per se because I am working and I'm working with the elderly. But it kind of was a gravitational pull because I'm by trade a teacher. So I've worked with children my entire adult life as well as property management. Um, I've always I my schooling is children. That's my background. But you get tired as a teacher,
Mhm.
as a caregiver. And so I went into property management, which was great. I loved that as well. But I always found that I went back to children. And after COVID, and since I'm getting older, I'm 49 now. And so I'm slowing down a little bit. It's kind of progressed to where now I'm working with the elderly. Um, and it's nice because the transition when I was younger and spunkier and had all this energy was I was working with the children. And now that I'm kind of slowing down and I'm also getting in that stage of life where, I'm getting older, there's changes happening, where I am working with people my age as well. So it's kind of an interesting dynamic.
Well, I love that. And I think that's what is so exciting and interesting about these conversations on the podcast, because this is more to my point that I've said several times is on this path, I really don't see competition because I believe that we all have such unique experiences that brought us to the work that we're doing now, whether we're working in the capacity of like a healer type or a practitioner, or we're working in other industries, but we're bringing those skills and gifts that we have, that light that we have, that heart-centeredness that we have, into the work that we do. And it sounds like you've gone from one extreme to the other, as far as from children to the elderly to hospice, so that's
Mm-hmm.
the
Yeah.
true life cycle, right? So
Right. Yes. Yes.
that's amazing. And I love that, because that's going to be such a unique path that not everyone else is going to have. And so
Right.
for you, do you find that working a regular job, we'll do it like that, a regular job is
Right.
more your feel like where you're meant to be, versus like being a healer type or a practitioner type? Do you feel like you're going to go that direction at some point?
Yeah. For me, um, my with my background, um, property management, I feel like I have a knack for that. However, I also am very healing in what I
Mhm.
do. So I'm kind of in the business professional setting. Um, but I noticed that people possibly who are having rough times in their life or going through things, they'll somehow gravitate towards me. And so
Mhm.
I have the flexibility and adaptability to be able to spend a little one-on-one time with them, um, and nurture them the way that other people in the office maybe obviously wouldn't be able to do.
Yeah.
But I've always known since I was little. I remember probably first one of my first memories when I was about 4 or 5. I remember laying in bed. I remember where my bed was. I remember how I was laying. I remember where my mom was in the house. And I remember even at 4 or 5, um, just talking to thousands and thousands of people and saying it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. And I
Mhm.
don't know what 4-year-old, 5-year-old would dream that and then retain that information, except for maybe if that's somewhere that I'm supposed to go.
Mhm.
So I have that very early memory, and of just really wanting to help people and that dream. I don't know if you've ever seen Sister Act.
I have.
The first one is, I'm 49, so I don't know when that movie came out. I think I was maybe 11 or 12.
Been quite a
But
while ago, yeah.
yeah, there's a line in the movie when someone says to Whoopi Goldberg, "When did you get the call?" And of course, Whoopi's there impersonating, so she doesn't understand. And she's like, the call. Oh, the call. I didn't know. And I just remember as a 10, 11 year, I was the only laughing in the theater. I was like, because at that age, I knew what the call was. I
Yeah.
knew what she was talking about completely. So I need to be outside of the realm of, I think, every just holistic. I need to have a little professionalism in my day just because that's my knack, and my schooling and that, so to speak. But I am very holistic in the sense that that's how I live and how I practice.
Mhm.
And people who judge a book by its cover wouldn't necessarily know that, because I do choose to work in the professional realm.
Uh-huh.
But there's a very holistic spiritual side to me as well.
See, and I love that so much, because that is, again, another point of the podcast, is to show how this shows up, in your life. Because prior to becoming um, the spiritual coach and the things that I'm doing now, I was a analyst in the federal government. I've been a private investigator. I've worked in all kinds of different industries, and I even had at one point, since my calling happened, since my awakening, the big awakening happened in
Yeah.
2014, I know I attempted when I was in Oklahoma, actually reached out to someone who had kind of a spiritual sort of a business, and they did different events there and things like that. And I went and spoke to her because I wanted to offer some things at one of her events. And she flat out told me that I was too analytical. And I was like, oh, well, that's interesting. Okay. So that is so funny because you and we've discovered through our conversations, we have very similar characteristics that are very different than a lot of other people, from our astrological sign to our what else did we there were several other points that we have that are the same. And that's, I think, the beauty about who we are as individuals is there's not one track for us. There's many, many tracks for us.
Right.
And we move in and out of these tracks, which is not something that everyone can do. And so I think that's pretty important. And also for other people to realize that if they are here to make an impact, and again, the intention of this podcast is positive global impact. And if you are a heart-centered person, you could literally be doing any job.
Yeah.
You could be a healer, you could be a coach, you could be selling shoes, you could be working at the steel mill. You know what I mean? But it's like, how are these things coming out from you? Because in order to make this positive impact in the world and looking at it from kind of a holistic lens, you're needed everywhere. We don't just need healers, we need people everywhere. And I think that's part of what's happening in the world right now is people are starting to recognize this, and they can grow into these bigger versions of who they are in whatever role they're showing up in the community. And I think that is super fantastic. I mean, what better person would I want in the role of working with children or the elderly or hospice or domestic violence or any of those things, but someone who has done the healing work on themselves?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I agree with you. I think everyone has a seed to sow.
Yeah.
I don't think it's one size fits all. And, this healing work that we do, trying to be the light workers or whatever name we give ourselves, we just want people to know that it's going to be okay and to keep going, and you're not alone. And there is people that truly care about you. And I think what's good too is that, in every industry, there's people that need that healing and that need that nurturing and need that compassion. So, someone in the working world might feel comfortable with someone, who's in their setup, who they may not know has that healing knack, or, people who it is important for them to, you know, feel that they have a connection with someone in some way other than emotionally and mentally, but we're on the same professional realm or whatever. Where me, I'm really lucky because I can wear any hat. I can dress I can wear what I want, and I'm completely comfortable because my identity is not consumed with what I wear or the clothes I wear, but in my heart. So seeds to sow are everywhere right now, and they need to be loved and taken care of. And that's what I definitely am trying to do, just to let them know, back to that 5-year-old girl that had that dream, it's going to be okay.
100%. I love that so much because I have also met people, and I've talked about this in various forms, but I've met people in a variety of positions. Let's say you meet someone who is a massage therapist who looks like they're in a healer type role, but yet they haven't done their own work, and it's coming through and in the experience, in the energy.
Yeah. Yes.
And at the same time, you might have people who are the worst of the worst, who have gotten themselves into roles so they can harm other people, whether that
Mhm.
be as a healer, whether it be in religion, whether it be in the schools, whether it be. And so
Yeah.
that's what I think is so incredibly important for people to know, is that your path is going to be so unique to you and who you are. What are you being called to do, and how are you being called to do that? And I know people can get so caught up in that because they might feel like they've only got one path to be on, and it may be that they have many paths that are going to be on, and they may be on this one for a little bit, and then they may be called
Right.
to another one, kind of like you've talked about.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
sometimes those of us who are multi-passionate sort of get a kind of a bad rap, like we're,
Right.
that's, and yet I think, rather than seeing it that way, recognizing that that's quite a gift to be able to move in and out of those different roles. Not
Yeah.
everyone has the ability to do that. So I love that you are showing up in that way to let people know that it's going to be okay, like
Right.
just whatever role you show up in. I
Right.
love that.
Right.
Good.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, I think the biggest change happened for me was probably around 9/11. I was managing a property in Oregon, and I remember during this time, I was probably about 265 pounds. I was working from about 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. every day, trying to get this rehab property together. And I remember 9/11 was the first day of my vacation. And I was sleeping, and the phone rang, and it was my mom, and she was like, Kim, are you watching the TV? I was like, no, I'm sleeping. It's the first day of my vacation. And she's like, so a plane just flew into Twin Towers. I was like, are you kidding me? She's like, no, go down, go watch it. And so I remember I turned on the TV, and I saw a man and a woman, both in their business suits, grab each other's hand and jump. And the way I'm programmed, I was like, oh, what kind of show is this? Like, it didn't even register to me that you just saw a man and woman in a business suit jump to their demise. And so I watched the news all day. I went to prayer that night, because at that point in time I was into religion quite a bit. Not now, more spirituality. But I knew that I probably would have been one of those managers who obviously does not know very much about engineering. And on that day, I probably would have been like, okay, guys, catastrophes happen. Let's go back up and go to the office and get to work, not knowing that the building was going to crumble, because I was such a workaholic. And
Mhm.
so it was that day, I thought to myself, you know what, you need to make a change. You need to really figure out who you are, where you're going. And it was at that point in time that I started to just really get back into my health, remembering my core, remembering what I truly am here to do, which is to help people, and taking that process. So it's been a long journey, for sure. A lot of self work, a lot of self reflection, and of course, even getting the weight off. That's a big job in itself, because there's so many layers to why the weight was on there to begin with. Um, but yeah, that was my turning point. You said yours was in 2014.
Well, there have been multiple turning points. That's when I had what I call the big awakening. There was a definite, profound spiritual awakening that happened in 2014, but there had been but there had been many happen before that. I just didn't know what they were. I didn't know. I didn't know what I was going through. There were little bits and bobs through that. So it's interesting on the weight, because I have a connecting story really similar to that. In 2002, my body began to, I wasn't someone who really enjoyed going to the doctor, so I didn't often go. And in 2002, my body just started getting really sick, and I began getting one diagnosis after another, to the point I literally had to, after that, started keeping a spreadsheet.
Oh,
Um, During that period of time, I was diagnosed with three pretty major things in 2002. One of those was emphysema, and I was 38 years old and told I wouldn't see 50. And so I was then forced to quit smoking, and which then turned into I put on 100 pounds in less than a year. So in 2003, I was finishing a bachelor's degree and ended up kind of stumbling onto the mind-body connection. So that was kind of my first little inkling of, oh, huh.
well,
So maybe all this past trauma I have and abuse I have is somehow connected to this. So I was just beginning to learn about those things. And ultimately in 2006, uh, well, and I remember 9/11 very well, because prior to that was April 19th, 1995 in Oklahoma, where my friends were killed in the Oklahoma City bombing, which was kind
yeah,
of the beginning
yeah.
of that sort of things going on. And so around 2006, I ended
And there
up,
was a daycare there. When like the
yes,
ground floor was a daycare.
yes, a friend lost their child and grandchild in
Mm,
that. I was one of the ones that had petitioned to get the daycare in there. And so, because I was a federal employee at the time and
right.
worked right across
Yeah.
the street. The building was where my mom's first federal job was in that federal building. So anyway, there's a lot of personal connections and a lot of trauma in our family connected to that. But as far as the weight, so around 2006, I was at my top weight. So I was about 283.9 or so at that point, and ended up having to go through gastric bypass because my body was starting to shut down. So fast forward around 2010, I had an emergency surgery, nearly died. 2011, I started seeking out meditation for the first time. Like that was kind of a new thing I didn't know anybody that did that. It was brand new to me. And so all of those things began to sort of accumulate. And then I graduated actually from SWIHA in 2016. And then during that period was when the awakening happened, and I received the calling of what I was here to do. And so, yeah, so we've had some interesting, it's like every time we talk, we find these interesting synchronicities that we've had through sort of parallels. And I've got 10 years on you. I'm 59. But it sounds like you started more of your holistic journey before I did. So, and that's another thing that's important for people to recognize. It's like it comes at any age. You can be doing anything and not really realize that you're actually have been being called into something bigger than what you've been doing, you know?
Right. Yeah, and I have you're not going to believe this. We have another synchronicity. I've also had a gastric bypass.
Have you really?
Yeah, I have. Yes, it just was one of the many tools. Now, I don't know how successful your surgery was. I I lost maybe half of my weight. I'm probably the one of the only people who can still eat sugar after the gastric bypass. And of course I figured that out. But I regained 3/4 of my weight after the bypass. Because it's just one of many tools. But because it's still a lot for
Yeah.
people, emotional and mental. And I obviously wasn't ready. It was when I got into eating and living intuitively that I really was able to start getting the weight off. But the bypass did help. And I just have to laugh and cringe every time people say, "Oh, you did it the easy way." No, no, there's definitely no easy way. That's one of the many tools in your basket to help. Um, it's such a
100%.
multi
Well, and
path.
for people who are watching who don't know, there are different types of weight loss surgery, and gastric bypass is what I call the big one. It's the
Yeah,
one where you are completely altered on the inside. You no longer use your regular stomach. They actually create a pouch for you, which becomes your new stomach. And life as you knew it before no longer exists. Your body has surgically induced malabsorption. You have trouble eating things. If anyone ever thinks that is the easy way out, let me tell you, it is not. And if you can avoid it, I would avoid it. For years, I sang the praises of it. I thought it was the greatest thing ever. I did talks. I was working at the VA hospital when I went through mine, and I went and gave a talk to a room full of veterans because they were thinking about making that an option for veterans and these different things. And I gave many talks on it because it saved my life. It truly did. I lost 150 pounds and my body started working again.
wonderful.
Now, what I also know, because I have a master's in counseling on top of all of the holistic healing modalities, is I had a really great surgeon. And so he surrounded you with, he wanted you to work with a psychologist if that was needed, a nutritionist,
Right.
things. And the psychologist had cleared me. And I said, "Are you nuts?" And he goes, "What do you mean?" I said, with my history, and you think that I didn't gain this weight for no reason. Like there's a
Right.
reason there that was beyond food. And so
Right.
anyway, there was that conversation. And ultimately I ended up gaining back probably about maybe 100, maybe 80, somewhere between 80 and 100. And I've still got probably about 40 to go to release the rest of it. And that is one of the things that I've tried to help people understand, is that the weight really, people try to say, "Oh, well, you just need to put the fork down and exercise more." Well, okay, that's one thought, but it's not actually always the reason for what's going on. Sometimes it's hormonal,
Right.
sometimes it's an
Right.
allergic reaction to certain foods when you don't even realize they're
Yeah.
inflammatory to your body. They may
Yeah.
not be on an inflammatory scale, but maybe they're inflammatory to your body. There's so many parts that people just try to simplify into, well, you just
Right.
do this, this, and this. And so I think that's amazing. And what you said is 100%. It's that really cleaning out all of the unhealed stuff that's just been trapped in your body, just crying for you to acknowledge it. And most of the time, people don't even know where to start. And
Right.
because even if you've done like the emotional, the mental work, there's still things stuck in your body, trapped in your body. I always say that body is like a memory foam mattress.
Yeah.
You might forget, but your body doesn't remember, or it
God
doesn't
doesn't.
forget the things you've been through.
Oh,
So
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
we've been walking around out here like the same person, like you're my twin.
I'm telling you, every time we talk, and your writing also is phenomenal. Like I love to write, but just reading your writing, you keep me. I'm there the whole entire time. I love it.
Well, I think
So
it must be because we're so similar, because I don't know that anyone else is impacted that way by anything I write. So thank you. So thank you for saying that. It's
of
like,
course.
if I need someone to be impacted by my writing, I'll send it to you.
Please do. Well, I would love to. I'm like, oh, I don't know if I can keep up with her. She's pretty good. And I'm a great writer. I love that. I love that. And that is so true about health and wellness. And it's not a one size fits all. And I think when I started to release the opinions of other people and the judgments of other people, is when the journey really started up again for me to release the weight, and not just release the weight, because I had gained weight back and forth so
Yeah.
many times. But just live my life how I feel intuitively I should live it, and how I need to let go of a lot of judgments from people who don't really even know who they are themselves. So yeah,
I think
it's
for me, what I carried more than anything was judgment against myself, and recognizing that, how to give myself grace, how to um, learn to love myself in a way that I had been crying out for a long, long time, and recognizing that if I make a mistake, that I don't have to berate myself for that, that I can actually, that it's actually okay, that I am human also, and that making mistakes is actually how I learn and grow. And so for me, really coming to those realizations and recognizing, for years, people would say to me, "Oh gosh, don't beat yourself up." And I was like, what does that even mean? Like, I don't even know what that means, until I realized what it meant, and realized how much grace I would give to other people. And I had zero for myself, zero. And I think that more than anything has been so critical in just how I feel, how I look, and also, like you said, really learning to tune in to who am I, and what do I actually need? What gets me feeling really good about myself on the inside? Because when I'm out of alignment, all kinds of things happen. You might see me get really angry. You might see me feeling super depressed, or whatever's going on. And those are all clues to me. Or even clutter. Clutter is a good one that will show up. Like, all of a sudden I'll recognize that my space is a mess, and I'll go, oh, I wonder what's bothering me that I have been ignoring.
yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
yeah. I'm the same way. That is wow. Yeah, completely. And I mean, I find that I am more of a harsh critic, like you were saying. I would never even dream of treating someone the way I treat and speak to myself in my mind. It's just like,
100%.
wow. And I don't know if I had a very controlled childhood when I was growing up. So everything was either white or black, cut and dry, cut and dry. And so these, certain, if I didn't do this right, I wasn't good here. And, I would never talk to anybody the way I even still sometimes talk to myself. It's really hard for me to take a compliment. When I was teaching, the parents love to give you gifts. If a parent would give me a gift, and at that time I felt like, oh, you know what, Kim, you're drinking too much soda this week, or you're not at your best self this week, I would actually put the gift away, wouldn't even open it, and save it for a time when I felt I was deserving of that gift.
Yeah. I think
And
that's huge that you've said that, because I guarantee you there's a lot of people out there that do that kind of thing. Everything is so shrouded in guilt and shame and unworthiness, and starting to recognize your own value and your own worth is really I think is the key to unlocking everything, is recognizing that. And something that I tell people a lot, clients and things that I work with, is that you know, and a lot of times in the spiritual world, you hear the word spirit or the divine or great spirit,
Yeah.
and God sometimes can have a negative connotation simply because of the way it's been used to sort of, I don't know, guilt and shame people. But what I have said to people is that if you believe that you are a child of God, or a child of the universe, or a child of the great spirit, whatever, how can you be anything less than divine? How
Yeah.
can you be? And
Right.
so, what can we do to get you to realize the value that you are? And once you begin to realize the value of who you are, you begin to show up differently, and you begin to, I think your light shines differently when you recognize that.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I agree. Um, I think for me, a lot of, I used to think that the universe hated me. I really did. Because the weirdest things would happen to me. Like, for example, I remember when I was about 20, I've grown up with dogs my whole life. I just love animals. And I went to go buy a Cocker Spaniel. So my mom and I were driving in the car, and I went out and I picked out this beautiful Cocker Spaniel, and I named her Sadie Blue. I still remember. And my mom and I had picked her up, and so we were going to go to PetSmart and get all the fun stuff and toys. And I remember sitting in the car and something coming into my mind, and I didn't even say anything to my mom, but something in my brain said, "You will not have this dog forever." And I thought to myself, wow, you're pretty cryptic, Kimberly, because I didn't know at that time. Sure enough, I did not have that dog forever, but I was able to release it a little better because I always had that in the back of my mind. Um, I remember one time my mom's a realtor, so we were looking at houses in Oregon because they were moving. And we were having so much fun because my mom could get in all the houses. And so we went into this one house. We were having a great time. And we went into this one house, and we walked in, and my mom went left to go look at whatever. And I went in the living room, and literally I was like, I just said, I just rested. I was just laying down. I was like, Mom, I don't feel good. She's like, what are you doing? I wanted to show you the bathroom over here. I was like, Mom, I don't know. I don't feel good. I feel really weighted, just something weird. And she's like, okay, you don't look good now. She goes, we're going to go home. And I was like, okay. So I kind of went around the house, and she showed me, and I was like, okay, I just kind of tried to get through it. And we got in the car. Maybe 5 minutes later, I was like, Mom, where are we going now? And she's like, we're going home. You look like you're like really ill. I was like, I feel fine now, Mom. And she was like, okay. So we went to tour to more houses, and she called me the next week. She's like, Kim. And I was like, yeah. She goes, do you know, I just learned that house, remember that house that we were in where you went wiki? I was like, yeah. She goes, that was a elderly home. She said there was probably a hospice elderly home. She said maybe that energy didn't jive with you very well. So it's just, things like that would just come up for me. I was one time in an abusive relationship, and I remember saying, okay, God, let's have a deal. Let's have the next song on the radio be what you want me to do. I am not joking. The next song on the radio was from the Beatles. I've never heard this song before or since. It's called Run for Your Life. And I blew it. I was like, oh, you wouldn't be that little, whatever that word is. And so I just laughed it off. I should have run for my life because, it made a difference in a couple months. But I thought, the universe just, I was like, there's just something so weird about me. And I just feel so uneasy with me. And And then I started to realize maybe you should just go with the flow, Kim, and maybe the universe really doesn't hate you. I mean, I would cry. I just was like, you are so weird. No one understands you. You have these weird feelings. And I slowly started to realize that maybe I'm just going to go with this and see where things go. And then that's kind of also how I got into the intuitive eating and all that. And things just have kind of fallen right into to place when I finally learned to accept myself. And I'm still the harshest critic I know of me. I would never treat anyone else how I treat me. But it's gotten a lot better.
I love that so much, and I think that's so key for anyone who's watching our episode together, because um so many of us are going through things that are really super cool. Like, we're getting all these kinds of messages, from spirit,
Yeah.
universe,
Yeah.
that are actually helping us navigate. But a lot of times, if people have tried to share that with someone else, they've either treated them like they were weird, treated them like they were crazy, treated them like something was wrong with them.
Yeah.
And so then they start trying to shut it down or try to hide it, or they feel bad about themselves. And the truth is, all of those things are spectacular. All of those things are really there to help you navigate your life. And the challenge a lot of people have is, not only do they not recognize what signs they're getting, but they don't know how to interpret them. And I've said
Right.
before is that a lot of times, once you've honed into your gifts, or you've gone through awakening, or whatever process, you learn to understand that. But sometimes that's one of the things that I actually can help people do, is understand the messages that they're getting, and also how to piece them together. Because it is a really, when you start to know yourself on that level and start to embrace who you are, I mean, what a gift. It's like you've been given, the keys to the kingdom, really. And the other thing is, I've shared with people before, this doesn't mean that your life stops being painful. It doesn't mean that storms stop. What it does mean is that you have better tools. You learn to navigate in a different way than you did before.
Mhm.
And I'm with you too. I would say that I have come leaps and bounds when it comes to being kinder and more loving to myself. And there's always room for growth there.
Right. The
Yeah.
grace, extend the grace to ourselves. The
Yeah.
way,
Absolutely.
yeah, I think my official turning point, when I was like, okay, either Kim, either you're really, really, really strange, or, you know, um, our family, we were in Colorado and we were taking a vacation. And I loved to see intuitives at that time. I mean, it was like 4 years ago. And I think I kind of set myself up for it because I went in with a certain vision. So I went in, it was a bookstore, um, and they did readings. And so I was, one of the question I was wanting to know, which I don't think I should have done that, because I should just been open to receive whatever spirit had for me, was I wanted to know, because I had lost a child in utero, is that spirit with me? And so that was that I was the answer I was seeking. Is the child with me, or the spirit? And we just, I mean, it's okay. I mean, she was a really nice lady. She really was. It just was not the message for me at that time. But I remember the way they were dressed. It was like, the long black robes with the cross, and like it was something out of a movie. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, I feel a little topsy turvy in here. And so after the read, I was like, thank you so much. Some readings you jive with, some you don't. But I was like, thank you. Fabulous. Thank you so much. Be blessed. And I'm walking, just kind of browsing things in the bookstore, and I see a Ouija board, and I'm like, oh, because I'm not into that. But it freaks me out a little bit. And I was like, okay, so my heart started pumping a little bit. And then there was some lady on the phone, and she was talking about putting a spell on somebody. And she was talking to her friend. Now I could only hear one side of the conversation, but it was enough of a conversation to where I ran out those doors. My family was in the car. I'm like, go, 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 go. It's like that IKEA commercial when she hops in the car and she's like, go. That's like, my husband's like, what is going on with you? I'm like, we just need to get out of this state. We just need to get out of this state. And he's like, we have 2 more days here. I'm like, no, we're leaving. We went home. I was like, I want to leave right now. He's like, no, we're not. Go home. The kids need to go to bed. So the kids went to bed. And he's like, I said, let's just go. I don't feel comfortable here. My own fault, because I had an expectation. And I was like, just let's go down to Sedona on our way home, and I'll relax. I'll go get a massage. It'll be cool. So I go in, we get to Sedona. I go in to get a massage, and I'm praying. I'm just like, please let this massage help me feel better, because I'm feeling really weird. And I just really didn't like that experience in the bookstore, regardless of what it was. I don't like it. And so I lay down to get actually, she was doing a facial. And she started talking to me. And out of the clear blue, she's like, you would not believe, Kimberly. She goes, I went and got whatever they're called. I had 32 entities relieved from me today. And I'm like, I was bawling in my mind. I'm like, how can I run from Colorado straight? And I laugh now, but honestly, at that time, and I asked her questions. I told her it was going to be okay. If that's, she's okay. I looked at her in her eyes. I saw peace there. So I was like, okay, I'm not feeling any, weird. But I remember leaving that appointment and really seriously, Kim, there's something severely wrong with you. Like, why would someone give you a facial and tell you that? Why would you go to Colorado and see the thing and the cloak and it was at that moment, I think I could have gone one way or the other way. And I ran into Intuitive's office in Sedona, because I went to Sedona so often. And I didn't tell her what happened, but I think she could just sense. And I just remember, and it was all I needed to hear. She said, you're pure. I don't understand. You're clean and you're pure. And I was like, okay. And she's like, you need to relax. Like, you're okay, Kim. And I really think it was at that time, like, I didn't know. I was like, either I'm really, really, really weird, or there's something really weird about me. And I just decided I'm going to go for I'm always going to follow the white light. I'm always going to follow the love. I'm always going to follow the truth. And now I look back on that and I say, you know what? If I hadn't gone through that experience, I may not listen to my intuition as much as I do now, because I really listen to it now. And now the religion's not so much for me. I'm not, to each their own, but it's more just like, you know what, they're the divine. Thank you. Thank you for being patient with me. And thank you for helping me get through this with myself, and also being able to help others now. Because I could have gone completely the other way, because that was just so freaky to me.
Well, you've brought up some excellent points, because one thing that I think it's super important for people to know is people have a tendency to lump everything into some sort of category. and they see everything as dualistic. It's either good or it's bad. And sometimes it just simply is.
Yes.
So, as an example, tarot cards. Now, there are people that can think, oh gosh, that's, that's bad. That's da 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 da. Well, it can be, and it can also not be. It really depends on the reader. And there have been multiple places that I've encountered in my life and multiple people that I describe as dark energy. And I know I can feel it, I can sense it, and I want no part of it. And there are a lot of people that think if you are intuitive, if you use divinity tools, if you do these different things, that everybody is lumped into this one category. And
Right.
that's simply not true. And as far as entities goes,
Right.
for anyone who may be wondering what we're talking about there, now you see it depicted in movies a lot as needing like an exorcism, or it's, use terms like the devil, Satan, whatever. Well, entities oftentimes are looking for a host body, and you can pick these things up. A lot of times, if your immune system gets low, let's say you're involved in drugs or alcohol, that can make you susceptible. If you are in, let's see, the hospital and you're under anesthesia, that can make you susceptible. There's things like that. There's also ways to cleanse your energy. There's also ways to shield your energy, to protect your energy. And one of the biggest things, and I've done several solo videos on this, is around learning to discern. There are different types of fear that will show up in your body, and I'll just talk about this for just a second. But one fear is you stepping out of your comfort zone, like, oh, that seems a little scary, I don't know if I want to do that. And that's a good time to go ahead and just push on through the fear. And that's where the acronym you may have heard, called Face Everything and Rise, or False Evidence Appearing Real, shows up. You may have another type of fear where, let's say, someone has a weapon against your head and you're in an alley. Okay, well, that's a real fear there that needs to be paid attention to, listened to. Then there's another thing that happens where you're somewhere and you just feel something is kind of off, or a person is kind of off. Maybe you walk into a room and you could go right or you could go left, and you start to go right and something stops you and you go, and you go left. Okay, so that's your intuition. That's your energy letting you know there's something energetic that does not align with you. That's when it's really important, kind of like, Kim, what you went through. You go into this place, you see somebody and you're like, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
I don't think this is for me. And
Right.
that's really important for you to get so tuned into who you are, what is right for you, what is not right for you, and know how to discern which of those three things is it,
Yeah.
and how to make the best choice for you. So I love that. And it's so hard to believe that we're already coming up on the end of our time. So we've just talked about all kinds of things. So is there anything you want that you'd like to share, that you'd like someone to know, just in general?
I think just basically what you were saying, stemming from the power of intention, especially, with the cards, it's what is the intent? What's the intended purpose? Are we aiming to heal? Are we aiming to bring hope? Are we aiming to create connection and community? Or is the intention something else? And that's just the part I don't really want to have a part of. And I think, yeah, you hit it. It's the intention behind the act, the intention behind the cards. And I think that we really just really want to help heal the world, because that's what we're called to do, or so I feel. We are just to love. And yeah, that's it, I guess.
100%. I love that. And you're so right. There are so many things that depending upon your intention, the internet can go this way or this way. What's your intention? It's so many
Yes.
things in our world. So thank you for bringing that up. And for those of you watching, thank you so much for watching another episode of the Holistic Pathway podcast, where I bring you these episodes unscripted every Saturday. We look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you so much for watching, and bye-bye.